Hola, bienvenidos. Regresamos de corte, estamos en Panorámica, una producción del Tecnológico de Monterrey. Y bueno, en este bloque quería comentarles o quería compartir con ustedes una entrevista que se realizó a la profesora invitada de la Universidad de San Diego, Denise Diamond, que habló precisamente sobre la afectación crediticia en Estados Unidos y ahora sí que la baja de la clasificación financiera, ¿no? Me parece muy interesante compartirles esto precisamente porque nos habla un poquito sobre las perspectivas que ahora sí que el país del norte tiene respecto a su economía y cómo eso puede afectarnos aquí en México. Entonces vamos a ver esa entrevista.
It's a pleasure to be here to discuss with you some of the craziness that's happening in the marketplace in the United States right after the debt, raising the limit on the debt ceiling. Last week was a wild ride in the various markets, and people are wondering, how is this going to impact not just the United States, but our close neighbor to the south, Mexico, Latin America, and even really the rest of the world. Because in the past, the United States really has been the engine of growth. When the U.S. is growing, pulling along the rest of the world. There's a saying that is, I hear it over and over in many places. It's not just in Mexico where I first heard it, that when the U.S. sneezes, Mexico gets pneumonia. But now I've heard that on the news when they're talking about Europe, what's going to be the impact. And now we have the crisis in Japan as well, recovering from, and hopefully recovering from, the tsunami and the devastation from that event. So what awaits? What really was the happening of the raising of the debt ceiling, and what does it mean? Well, I am an economist by training, but I don't really have a crystal ball. So I will not pretend to be able to give the answers, but maybe we can discuss a little bit what it might mean briefly, and what it might mean for the future for the students that are currently in the educational system now. And I think the short answer will be, hopefully it won't really mean that much. I'm not saying that the debt in the U.S. is not a problem. It is a problem. But we also need to put it in a perspective. The debt ceiling has been raised. It is probably about 70% of GDP, but in Japan it's 200%. In Mexico right now it's very good. It's only about 30%. In Europe and elsewhere, it's very close to France and Germany right now, the same as in the United States. So yes, the U.S. has a debt problem, and this needs to be addressed. Everyone is very much aware of the dysfunctional government right now, and how that we seem to be unable, our leadership in the United States seem to be able to address this problem. And I think what it really means is that this is a crisis of confidence. People are unsure what's happening with the U.S. economy, so this is creating a lot of uncertainty around the world. And Mexico would be no exception to that there's also uncertainty here because Mexico's economy is so closely tied to the United States. So, but if we look at the fundamentals, and I'm not saying that things are very good. We've had persistent high unemployment rate. Consumer confidence is way down. Recent survey was done looking at business confidence in general, and it was down in July of this year before the raising of the debt ceiling and the awareness. So there has been an ongoing problem of confidence there. But if we look underneath it, there have also been some good signs. Durable good orders have been increasing. The businesses themselves seem to think that things might be moving forward. Consumer spending is actually up in the United States. Unfortunately, it's not across all segments of the economy. And Mexico too, a lot of the fundamentals, business is growing, investment is booming. So I think there's a little bit of a difference between what the business sector is actually doing and what the government and the newspapers are saying and talking about. Again, I'm not trying to give the impression that there are no problems. There are some problems that need to be addressed. And so I think the real issue will be, how are these problems addressed by the government? And how can confidence again be rebuilt? Some people are also saying that is this going to be the beginning of a lost decade for the United States. In fact, it's true that 6 years ago, real income is not any higher today than it was 6 years ago in the United States. And we don't really see a lot of potential growth happening. So people are already talking about the lost decade in the US, just like they talked about before in the 1980s, the lost decade for Latin America. But I'm a little bit more optimistic because even though the United States has been the engine of growth, there are a lot of other economies that are growing very strong as well, that are looking good. Mexico, maybe the growth isn't as good as Mexicans would want it, but is growing. Brazil is growing. We know China, India, and in fact, some of the decline that's happened in the United States and in Europe has helped these economies grow, because investors have been looking at the potential returns, the potential growth of Europe and the US, and they're saying nothing's happening here. Maybe we need to invest in these markets. So I think if we're resting all of our hopes on just the US economy, maybe we have some things to be concerned about. But there's other places in the world, and that growth in those markets will actually end up helping the United States as well. Most of Latin America is doing very well right now. In fact, people are worried that there's going to be a bubble bursting, that the markets are growing too fast. And a lot of this is because of the issues of the growth that's happening in Asia and in other places. So what does this mean for young people today? How to prepare? What kind of differences might this be now that maybe we can't pin all of the growth of the world on the US market? Well, it just means that we have to learn more about other markets and other opportunities. And young people are studying different languages, they're learning about business around the world, they're learning about how the markets are very integrated. And I think that the young people today are probably going to be better prepared to face those opportunities than maybe the people that are the current middle managers that don't have that kind of expertise. So I see a lot of opportunities for the future, especially if our young people are thinking about investing more in creative innovation and looking to see what are those opportunities that present themselves around the world. So there are some changes, but I think that people who are prepared to meet them, we will not see the beginning of another Great Depression. Hopefully. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do see many opportunities, changes perhaps, in where the market growth is coming from, but the young people today need to be prepared on where that growth and learn more about those markets and those opportunities. Thank you very much.